Hi, this is Chris Folino with Newvision Asia, and today I want to talk about meals with your suppliers in China. Recently, one of my friends from Hong Kong sent me a video that showed a group of foreigners having a meal with a Chinese factory owner, and as the dishes were all served to the center of the table, the foreigners would take each plate, put it in front of themselves, and eat it like you would in a Western country, one dish to one person, and everyone just thought this was hilarious. Um, Obviously, the foreigners didn't know the culture of China; it hadn't been explained to them. So, I want to go over with everybody today, just walk you through the meal, so you at least have a general idea of 90% of what you're going to encounter, and then the other 10% that is always a surprise. Well, you can be prepared for that based on your knowledge of everything else. So, you are invited to dinner by the factory owner, we'll say, or a high-ranking person in the factory. When you arrive at the restaurant, most likely you'll be eating at a round table. You may be at a private room or you're in the general seating area, but most tables, especially if there's going to be more than four people, are going to be round in China with a lazy Susan spinning wheel in the middle. Don't sit down right away. Wait for the factory. I'm just going to use the factory owner for the rest of the video. The factory owner to tell you where to sit, because they're going to look at your group of people, determine who's the highest ranking person, and they'll get the seat of honor, which is going to be a seat probably with the back to the window if it's a private room, or it's going to have a round shaped or some unique style of napkin format, and then that shows where the seat of honor is. And then from there, they'll place their people from their factory with people from your group around the table. The highest ranking at the seat of honor to the lowest ranking people at the other side. Now, if you're just a one-person show, well, then it's easy. You're going to sit there. The owner's going to sit next to you, and they're going to put the translator, no matter their ranking, probably next to you to help facilitate conversation. If you're in a group of people, don't get all worked up if you feel like you rank higher than someone else in your group, but they get seated in a different position. It's really who's the number one, and then best guess for everybody else. Just enjoy the conversation, speak with the people next to you, and get to know your supplier, because at this meal is where you're building relationships with your factory. All those future things like payment terms, discounts, all of that starts to flesh out here at the meals. As they get to know you, they're going to get to know your business more. Even if you've been working with them for years and you think you know everything with each other, you'll make small chat about the kids and that, and what your thoughts are on the market. So now you're seated. Well, let's just cover what you're going to see in front of you. There will either be, depending on the level of the restaurant, 1 to 2 set of chopsticks next to you. If you can't use chopsticks, it is not impolite to ask the factory owner if the restaurant has a fork and knife. You don't want to be making a scene, constantly trying to get the food in your mouth if it's something that you've never done. Now, do give it the old college try for the chopsticks, so it shows you do embrace the culture, but then for the rest of the time, just use the fork and knife and spoon to make it easier so you're not starving throughout the meal. So, 2 sets of chopsticks. One of them is serving chopsticks, so you're going to use these to bring food from the center of the table into the bowl that's in front of you. Don't go with the plate. There's a little plate, a bowl on top. The plate is kind of the waste bin of everything, so your seafood shells, your bits of bone, those types of things all go next on the plate, and then in the bowl goes your food. Sometimes people will have the bowl next to the plate. Sometimes they keep the bowl on the plate the whole time and work around it. But that plate is occasionally going to be cleaned up as it gets filled by the serving personnel. So just keep that in mind. So chopsticks, watch to see which the other ones use. There's probably usually a white set or a cream colored and a black set. If people are using the cream colored to grab the food from the middle and put it on their bowl, then they set it down, then they pick up the black ones to eat the food, use the cream ones to get the food that way. If it's the opposite, then it's the opposite. But as in many meals, the factory owner will want you to eat first. And if you haven't been watching anybody like grabbing the little appetizer dishes or something with those chopsticks, just ask. Be like, which ones are for which purpose? And they'll tell you. And the fact that you even asked that, they'll respect that you do know something about their culture there. So those are the chopsticks. The plates. You'll grab the food, bring it, and put it into your plate. If it's a bowl of soup, it'll be a soup ladle from there to your bowl. Many places will actually show you the soup and then divide it up for you. Again, it all depends on the type of level of the restaurant. 5 stars in big cities going to have all the bells and whistles. If you're in the countryside and they've just found the best restaurant they can, they may just take communal chopsticks and put them in the middle, and you'll use those to grab the food. And even in some situations, there won't even be communal chopsticks. People use the chopsticks, grab the food, put it there. Yes, it's the same ones they use. They put them in their mouth, and then they grab food again. So you just have to put ego aside and go with the flow there. What about crazy foods? People are always hearing about, I don't want to eat some strange animals. If you're way out in the countryside, it could, they could be saying, oh, do you want to try dog or cat? These days, that rarely happens because even in China, they've got pets that are dogs and cats. So you're not seeing that, and you really need to be in specific regions. You're not going to see those types of food that regularly. But you will see a lot of live food that's brought to you, and then off it goes to get prepared, or they take you in the back and you pick out which fish, which animal you want, and that's going to be served. That's just a part of it. If you have food allergies, of course, tell your host food allergies. You do not want to get sick and then be looking for an EpiPen or a hospital in the middle of the countryside because you thought you shouldn't tell them you didn't like to eat something. And if they ask you the types of foods you like, it's fine. Tell them you like beef, you like chicken, you don't really care for fish, for example. Myself, made the mistake, not a big fish eater. Before I figured this all out, it was years that I visited a factory basically weekly. And the owner would order fish, and we'd eat fish until finally one day I decided I'd had enough and said, I gotta tell you, I really don't care for fish. And he started laughing, and I was like, oh, I've completely embarrassed myself. And he's like, I hate fish. The only reason I brought here was because I thought you liked the fish. Well, lesson learned. Learn from my mistakes. Be open and honest with your supplier about your likes, your dislikes, or something in the group, so that they'll kind of order accordingly. That one turned out much better because then we both figured out we liked ribs, and there was a rib place down the road where each rib was about that big, and it was all you could eat. And so he and I, every week from that, we went to that place for our meals. It was a lot better. So you can guide with the food. They're still going to throw things out there that you've never seen before. Try them. Often better to try them and then ask what it was. But if you don't care for it, once you've tried it enough, just don't refill your bowl with that, or you can politely say, that's okay, I've had enough. They'll get the message, okay? Nobody wants to make anybody uncomfortable. They want you to try their local dishes so you can learn what it's all about. But again, it's the point of not being comfortable because you're there to discuss business. So that covers the natures of the foods. Don't fill up on the first round of food that comes. Unless you speak Chinese, you may not realize, especially if it's your first trip there, how many dishes or types of food they have ordered. There could be 15 dishes coming, and you wind up filling up on that first one, and you know, I got to be polite, I got to try other things and that down the road. And by round number 12, where everybody's bursting anyways, I mean, you've gone from full to it's almost painful to eat anymore. So pace yourself. Don't fill up beforehand before the meal. Just pace yourself on how much you're eating. The food will still be in the middle, so you can have the chance to go back and get more if you're not full. Same with rice. Don't just eat those bowls and bowls and bowls of rice, because you're going to fill up fast. And if they don't bring rice to the table or they didn't ask you, you can request it and then put the food on top of the rice they do, or they'll separate out from the rice bowl into their food bowl and then put food in there too. Drinking. Drinking is often a regular part of doing business in China. If you don't drink, again, tell them you don't drink. I had factories, suppliers, the owners, they didn't drink. So we could have, with all the other people, if we wanted to, and occasionally we did. Or not. It didn't matter to him. In other factories, they like to drink more, but I would often tell them, especially those I've been working with, that, if it was lunchtime, I didn't want to drink a whole, I didn't want to drink, I'd say a whole lot or drink, because we still had lots of work to do, and I'd tell them I'm going to fall asleep if we drink a bunch. I want to get the work done. In the evening, it can be a different story. Lots of people are going to cheers people. If you don't have a high tolerance, we always joke that you'd have one of the subordinates help for you, like oh, I'm good, or that, and so we get one of the lower ranking people to help cover it for ourselves, because that's what you'll find is the owner will drink, but then occasionally it'll be his managers, his other people also cheersing you, and they'll use words like "ganpei," which means finish your glass, and it can get ugly. But you never want to get to the point, I mean, this is for anything in life, but especially when you're talking with your factory and you're talking about business, and as I've said before, you never want anybody to have leverage on you as a buyer, as a worker, a little different as an owner, but you don't want that leverage too. So don't lose control. If you know that drinking, they want to order a bunch of hard liquor and you try it and you have a little sip, stand your ground, okay? Do what you feel is comfortable. They're not going to get offended no matter how their faces look and that, but you have to protect yourself at the end of the day. So drink to the level that's comfortable for you. Don't drink to the point where you're releasing company secrets or agreeing to something that you never would sober, because it'll come back to bite you the next day, because people are going to remember. And if you drink too much and then you act foolish, that's going to go with you. It's not going to go, obviously, to the next factory, but every time you visit that factory, that's sitting in the back of everybody's minds of what you did. I mean, if you're the owner of there's the customer, and then you guys get a little crazy and it's mutual, then what's it going to matter? You're the owner. But if you're an employee, then these are the things that you don't want going, up to upper management, because you're never going back. Especially if you've made the company look foolish, or, again, done something you didn't do. So in terms of drinking, you don't have to shy away from it if you don't want to. If you don't tell them. If you're training for a marathon and, alcohol is obviously going to impact your thing, just tell them that. They'll respect it. They'll start asking you then about the training in the marathon when they're not talking about business. So there's a million things, and we'll cover more of them in meals and food, but that will get you through the general idea. Remember the dishes, which chopsticks you should use, take the food from the center, Don't overeat. Don't overdrink. And, spend the time getting to know the factory owner. Ask them questions. They're happy to talk. The history of, their business, and tell them yours. Use that time to build a bond between the two of you, and it'll work out for both of you, from a social and financial aspect down the road. Hope you like this video. If you do, please click subscribe. More content coming out regularly. And most important, remember, whether it's your first order or your 100th order, or however good a relationship you think you just developed with this factory from the meal, always get a third-party inspection done on your goods before they ship, and protect yourself. I'm Chris Folino with Newvision Asia.